I'm Vishal Pinjani. I am the president of the Social Club, the Social Responsibility Forum, SRF of NMIMS. It is a student-run outreach initiative that aims to create a positive and meaningful impact in society. And for 18 years, through its various outreach programs, social initiatives, and campaigns, it strives to foster empathy and drive sustainable change in our community. Now, Transcend is the SRF's annual Pride Month initiative aiming to create awareness and celebrate queer identities. The event features interactive sessions with LGBTQIA+ speakers from diverse backgrounds, supported by an online campaign covering topics like inclusivity, allyship, identity, and rights. So I pass it on to Mohak to continue the event. I hope you all have a great time, and we would love to hear amazing insights from you guys and actually spread awareness through our platform about this community.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for that, Ishita. So now officially, I think we can begin and start a panel discussion. So firstly, before we go ahead with any questions and everything, I'll just like every one of the panelists to just introduce themselves so that everyone, you guys already know each other, so that's good. So just introduce yourselves for the audience, starting with Sonal.
Hi everybody on this call. Thank you for inviting us. I'm Sonal Giani and I've been working on LGBTQI plus rights for now almost 18 years. I have worked for the community through different mediums. I've been part of community-based organizations. I've been part of global HIV programs. I have worked on gender and inclusion across the world. I have created and co-founded support groups for lesbian, bisexual, transmasculine persons and for LGBT youth. I also do create a lot of multimedia content around queerness. And yeah, so I would say the best way to describe myself would be somebody who is educating, mentoring people, and creating conversation around LGBTQI plus.
Thank you so much, Sonal. Can we go ahead with Vishal then?
Hi everyone, my name is Vishal Pinjani. I'm from Kolhapur, Maharashtra. And I strongly believe that much of the hatred or prejudice that is existing in the society or in the world right now, which leads to violence, discrimination, and oppression of the queer community, most of it leads from ignorance, is what I believe. And there's a reason for it, what we don't understand, we fear, what we fear, we hate, what we hate, we try to destroy. And this is the reason why I feel that, there's this hate and prejudice and judgment across communities and across societies and across the world against the LGBTI community. And I believe that creating awareness about queer people, about our identities, will help us, build a world where people accept us and there is no more discrimination and oppression. So I'm working with that specific goal in my mind currently. Apart from that, I have started an initiative called Abhiman, which works for the human rights and well-being of the LGBTIQ community in Kolhapur. And most of my work, I would like to create more awareness and everything, but most of my time goes in handling crisis nowadays. You'd be surprised that at least I get 2 calls in a day. Most of them are from my hometown and nearby, but sometimes I'm getting calls from all over India. Sometimes people are being blackmailed, sometimes they're being thrown out of their houses, sometimes there's a condom breakage and they don't know what to do after that, like if there's a sexual emergency or something like that. So so most of my time is going in crisis management, but I wish to create awareness to help build an inclusive society, and thank you for inviting me here. I hope this platform also provides me the same space that I'm looking for to create more awareness.
Perfect. We're also very glad to have you, Vishal. Thank you for joining us. We're all about creating awareness as well. So let's finish up our introductions with Lauren now.
Yes. Firstly, I want to say thank you all. Thank you, Vishal and Sonal, for your work that you all have been doing for the community. It's actually, just thank you for that. And I'm actually excited to join you all and hopefully from here, maybe even collaborate with you all through your work because I love that. I'm Lauren. I am an actor, theatre maker, and a drag king. I also teach drama at an IB school. And and yeah, I've been on the precipice in a very I've been a transgender non-binary actor in a very binary industry, and that has kind of shaped a lot of what my journey and my work has been. And yeah, that's pretty much about me, and I'm waiting to dive in further.
Quickly, now that we're all done with introductions, I just want to welcome you guys once again. Welcome to our event, Transcend. So let's go ahead with the first question. Seeing as we're here to raise awareness and just spread awareness around the YouTube channel and college students as well, considering we are a college club, I think the most important question first we can tackle with is how can you create an environment of inclusivity for the LGBTQI plus community? Like, how can you make them feel included? So any one of you who's want to comment on that, you can go ahead and speak on that topic.
I think opening. I mean, if I can start, at least in the my experience will be primarily from. It's good to actually start saying that, because my experience is a very urban middle class. I grew up Christian, so my experience is coming from like that end, and but the LGBTQI community has a lot of layers and obviously a lot of intersections. So my intersection and my experiences will come from education and also a little bit of media actor experience. And I think for more inclusivity, I also feel I feel like definitely building more spaces for them, because a lot of the time there is a thing that, oh, where are the trans actors, where are the queer people, and instead, because we can't find them, तो हम लोग किसी को भी cis actors को ले लेंगे, या मेहनत नहीं करना चाहते उस चीज में. But the thing is, there are all of us everywhere in all forms in different parts of the industry, and not even only in the media industry, we are everywhere. And that for me is just like I'm waiting for us, for myself as well, to put up, like, do work, make a community in such a way that our work is highlighted even more. Of course, thanks to social media, we are far more visible, but just, I think inclusivity is not just like it's not just like, oh, representation in terms of characters, but also who is writing those characters. How are those actors safe when they are being casted, when they are being included in those rooms? Because I think this wo bhi jayenge, matlab tokenism and all, we'll also talk about that just writing a character is not enough nowadays, because what are the resources that the industry has put together to ensure safety or ensure that the work happens in a inclusive way? Because a lot of our cishet friends are not kind of experiencing the kind of lives that we are experiencing as trans, non-binary, lesbian, gay, and there's also a condition of whether we should be outed or not. So if someone wants to, so if a person wants to be outed or not, and still, so there's a lot of these politics. So I think inclusivity, if we can just start with having more conversations and building community around that, and just think a bit further, and like, yeah, and focus on compassion rather than trying to understand. मुझे समझ नहीं आता का मतलब doesn't mean कि समझ नहीं आता तो पढ़ लो ना, like. So I think that thing of just being compassionate to another human being rather than ignorance, like what Vishal said, पता नहीं है तो we won't do anything about it. So that, I think, let's start with that.
Yeah. Hey, I think Lauren, I completely agree with you. Like, on the same page, 100%. उसमें एक और layer भी क्या होता है ना, मोहक, that what happens is that often when we have any conversations which are either in the workplace or in the educational space, पहले तो सवाल ये आता है कि why do we need to talk about this? है ना? We have come here to study. Why do we need to now suddenly talk about this LGBTQI plus issue in the first place, right? So, but that is when you have to sort of realize that this is a problem when you don't have a conversation which is an explicit conversation on the rights of LGBTQI plus persons, because whether you are recognizing or not, there is a lot of implicit communication through different things about your gender or your sexuality. Something as simple as कि आप कौन सा बाथरूम यूज़ कर रहे हो will let us know कि आप कौन से जेंडर से आइडेंटिफाई कर रहे हो, या फिर something as basic as people make in colleges, they have their first few relationships, right? So you start to get to know a lot about people's gender and sexuality, and these conversations are happening. And आप school या college बोल दो या फिर even workplace बोल दो, Like majority of your life at that particular time is spent in that space. Okay. And what ends up happening is if the space is not created for a conversation or just a safe space nahi create kiya, like Lauren was saying, what ends up happening is ki people who are from the community will end up self-editing for safety. So when I say self-edit, वो अलग-अलग तरीके से निकल के आता है. या तो आप you're not dressing the way you would like to dress, right? So you're not fully comfortable in your body. Forget about dressing. You might even be changing the way you walk or trying to change the way your pitch is, which is all quite unnatural. It's basically you trying to do, if I told you Mohak, like आप कॉलेज जाओगे, सारा टाइम आप जब कॉलेज में होगे आपको कैट वॉक करना है पूरा दिन, ठीक है? तो आप पूरा दिन वहाँ बैठ के कैट वॉक कर रहे हो. दूसरा ये कि लाइक यू ऑल्सो आर सेल्फ एडिटिंग बिकॉज यू फील कि अगर किसी ने ये देखा so they are you're going to be the subject of scrutiny, and from scrutiny you'll be the subject of violence. Like a majority of queer students, especially trans students, they have dropped out of college, है ना, because they have faced either discrimination or sexual violence in bathrooms. Okay, so there are like some real consequences when we are not talking about these things. So सबसे पहले and basic minimum I would say is to create a safe space for at least a conversation. And how can a conversation happen is that if you give a signal that you are open for a conversation. So and giving signals is very very simple. It's not even extra. Abhi Pride Month chal raha hai. You put post on your social media saying to all the communities, Happy Pride Month. As an ally, I would like to say Happy Pride Month. Or you reshare a rainbow post. You put a like a small rainbow logo or anything on your social media. It gives a link. क्योंकि हम एज कम्युनिटीज हमने कभी भी कुछ देखा नहीं है ना कि लोग सपोर्टिव है कि नहीं. सो if you don't give us a signal, the assumption from our end for our own safety is that you are not queer friendly. And unfortunately, I find like a lot of allies, especially young generation, उनको लगता है कि यार understood है ना कि I am queer friendly, like there's no doubt about that. But no, it's not about your personality anymore. It's about like the social structure. So how will I know as a college if my college is safe and friendly or not? If the culture in the college is that people talk about it openly, there's some queer person just hanging out in the cafeteria and laughing, and like they have a lot of friends, or somebody in a public position who's like a president of a club and is openly queer, or there's a conversation. Those are the signals that you can sort of give. So many are possible. But only one last thing I want to add, which is something you need to be careful of, जो मैंने बहुत कॉलेजेस और कॉर्पोरेट्स में देखा है कि पूरा ओनर्स लोग ना क्वेयर कम्युनिटी पे डाल देते हैं कि आप क्रिएट करो स्पेस, आप कॉन्वर्जेशन स्टार्ट करो. वैसा बिल्कुल नहीं होना चाहिए. It should be allies. It should be the institution who has to create the conversation and take the onus and responsibility. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. Vishal, you want to add anything to that?
I'd begin by sharing by my own experiences of college life. When I started my college, I was very excited at a new chance at life because I was being bullied in school, and because I was a bit effeminate. So when I went to college, I decided that I'll act a little bit manly and try to fit in so that people accept me. And although that worked initially, after certain point of time, people probably for some reason figured out ki I'm gay, and I was forcibly outed, like even without my consent and everything. Now what started after that is bullying, teasing. I also had to face physical violence once in my college. And with all this happening, I had no idea that whether if I try to report these incidences to the college authorities, whether they will side by me or they will call me names like why are you like this, and ask me to change. So because of the fear that whether my college authorities would accept me or no, I never reported these incidences. I faced a lot of mental health issues, depression, suicide ideation, and finally I quit. I could not complete my education because I was being not accepted and bullied and everything. uh, to begin with, what we could do is create awareness about the consequences of ignorance and homophobia both. If the larger crowd in the college, the people like you who are part of the social groups and the teachers and the HODs and the principals, if they are not vocal about your institute being queer friendly, your institute having zero tolerance policy against discriminations on the basis of sex, gender, and sexuality. Students will not know. Queer people like will not know that whether I'll be safe or not, whether I come out or I don't come out. This is one thing. Another thing is a lot of institution might claim to be having diverse crowd, but the infrastructure doesn't support inclusivity. You might give admission to a gender diverse person like a trans person or a agender person and not have gender neutral toilets is not being inclusive. So you need to build infrastructure also that is inclusive. And I think the realization also, awareness also needs to be created about the consequences of silence, of not speaking up about queer issues. For example, imagine today you have a friend who's queer, okay, and they're facing a lot of problems in their personal life and they're not sharing it with you or anything. What are the chances if your institution was inclusive, if there were open conversations about sexuality in your college, and this person had a safe space where they could be themselves, express themselves, share whatever other problems they are having? It would have such a tremendous effect on their mental health that anxiety, suicide ideation I'm not saying they might go away, but they might feel supported and might lessen it. So I think it's important to start with why. Your ignorance could be the reason why somebody is wearing a mask every day and coming to the institution. Your ignorance could be the reason why somebody is being bullied, oppressed, not being able to live their lives. Your ignorance could be the reason why some people are being raped and murdered. And this is the why that we should start with to build an inclusive way to begin with. Yeah.
I understand that. I just have a quick follow up. See, as you've spoken a lot about the hardships that people have faced when they're younger and just coming out, I want to understand, even for myself as well, how do I make a queer person feel like they're in a safe space to talk about it, or just in a safe space to be like, yes, I can talk to this person that I am queer or I am gay? How do we people who are straight people create that environment for you guys?
First of all, talking about these incidences, talking about these things, like it's a Pride Month, like Sonal said, put up a post about Happy Pride Month and everything. Your social media is a good space for you to express your allyship and your support to the queer community. And if there are some people who are making some homophobic comments or jokes, you could probably stand up to these people and tell them that this joke is not correct. So being vocal about you being an ally through your social media or your college events and everything, standing up to homophobic jokes or anything that is homophobic, this is a way to let others around you know that you are queer friendly, you understand the community, and you would support. This would help the people from the community become more comfortable to open up to you about their sexuality or gender identity.
And also, let's normalize it, right? Like, we often ask our friends like, hey, tu kisko date kar raha hai, ya tu kisko date kar rahi hai? Like, let's normalize that a little bit also, because um sorry, lost my train of thought. But normalize it in a sense of being like, it's as easy as, like, I mean, recently I came out, about talking about my top surgery and stuff, and I wished, like, there were few friends of mine who I wished, like, that they'd reach out and like just ask and stuff. And when they did, it matters, because they, like, this is what someone has gone through, and this is, and we are a community. And so, yeah, like, reaching out, normalizing, talking about, and also it'll make you look smarter. A lot of times we are often trying to look smarter than the other one, right? Like, it's not like queer issues are not like a fad or something that came up 10 years ago. The pre-colonial India had gender and sexuality throughout, across the world, not only in India. And so understanding that this was a Victorian law that we are following and that we are meant to put in these roles, it'll only make you feel like more educated and more empathetic and just a better human being, if you like talk about the fact that, listen, this is the time that we live in, and we must kind of support like the communities that are actually marginalized right now. And yeah. what I also wanted to add to a previous thing that we were talking about and the importance of institutions actually. Uh, I was in St. Stephen's College, and for me, my birth of my gender and sexuality happened in St. Stephen's because I had a gay professor, Akhil Katyal. I don't know if you all have heard of Akhil. Beautiful man, brought about like talking about it, brought poetry in class, and and we just had discussions. I could say fuck in a classroom. Sorry, happening, but I could say like stuff like that in a classroom. I'm not saying like tell professors to start like letting children abuse, but the kind of conversations that he brought, we were studying history, so that's when I realized, let me ask questions based on history, what I'm studying. Ki, sir, but what about queer identities, what about caste, what about these things? So use your subject, use your interests to have conversations, raise them in class. And I know it's hard to like raise your hand and do all of that, but you don't know how better someone else will feel if you have put a hand up and asked a question that might serve your neighbor. Because it's not just like वो क्या कहते हैं कि सब आगे बढ़ने के लिए like सबको आगे एक साथ बढ़ाना है, अकेले आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते. So yeah, that line.
I kind of, yeah, Vishal and Lauren and Sonal, whatever you guys have mentioned, I feel like it's very important that we guys stay aware and just informed of what everything is about and not stay ignorant about it. But staying on those lines, we've discussed how the students can make other students feel included. But the main problem I feel amongst my friends as well is a lot of the parents as well. Parents have that mentality, ki, no, this is not right. So how would you advise someone to deal with that situation, or any advice you'd give to the parents? Because I don't think it's very easy to change the mentality of a person who's had the same mentality for the last 40 years and how they've grown up. It's very difficult to accept something new entirely to them.
I think I can go with that one. So I like, often people consider conversations on gender sexuality or conversations on coming out as a one-time conversation. You need to change that. Actually, this with it will take sometimes many conversations for somebody to change their opinion. And ज़्यादा conversation तब लगती है जब conditioning बहुत ज़्यादा है. So when we talk about parents and families and older people, you need to have a lot of patience, I would say, with them and lead them more to resources. And so सबसे important तो ये है कि आपको पूरी तरह से खुली तरीके से बात करना है. Your parents can be whatever. But often I have found that older people also mirror your responses also. So if you are a queer person coming out, best, I mean, you can't always control that, but they will reflect how you kind of speak or talk about the subject. And frankly, there hasn't been enough space or conversation kind of created for even older people to talk about queerness. Often मैंने देखा है कि older people के लिए वो corporate space में आते हैं, फिर वो धीरे धीरे बात करने लग गए. It helps to then also like एक दो तीन conversations के बाद give some resources around, है ना, जो वो अपने आप धीरे धीरे देख सकते हैं. But it's the same thing for, I would say, everybody. Begin with a few conversations, lead them to some this thing. If there is a very negative reaction, let it lie low for a while, leave a resource around. The position changes very it changes over a period of time. Slowly change होता है, but काफ़ी ड्रामेटिक चेंज भी मैंने देखे हैं लोगों में जो बहुत नेगेटिव थे. Other thing is that also I have seen, if you're very serious about working with parents and there's your queer friend जो उसके parents काफ़ी negative हैं, तो फिर it helps to actually make them talk with other parents of queer people. Because if or you go take them to a medical professional or somebody who's a professional, because they are not, sometimes parents find it difficult to, their conditioning is such that they may not take a younger person seriously, especially who's not a professional. So when they talk to someone, so when they talk to a parent, they are able to relate with what the parent is saying because the parent is in similar social challenge, uh, anxiety, so, and they are then meeting somebody who will help them kind of work through that. So that's more relatable to them. Or if it's a professional, then अच्छा professional बोल रहा है, so the facts and figures are quite sort of clear. Yeah, I mean, I will say again, in general, you have to keep the patience and sprinkle it. If somebody is very homophobic, sprinkle it very gently, uh, by correcting somebody who is misgendering someone. just talking about, oh wow, there's a Pride Month and you're participating, those kind of things. And always to remember that even if you're talking to your parents about someone, never to out someone without their consent. Just to be quite careful with that. Yeah, yeah, I keep saying that you take chunks. It's जब बहुत ही negative consequences आ रहे हैं, do it in chunking. Chunking really works best.
I came out to my parents, like what Sonal was talking about, that ek bari nahi hota hai. I did like 3-4 times because I was like, I don't think I did it right. I came out like 3-4 times because I was like, wait, I don't think you all are getting it. But the issue was that I was coming out with my sexuality, but I needed to talk about my gender. So that was the reason why I was like, I don't think you all are getting it, parents. Like, I need to explain it to you all. And I wrote then a 3,000 page, like 3,000 word letter to my parents with like resources in the end, like a unicorn, वो unicorn gender sexuality का map नहीं है सोनल, वो जो दिखाता है सब कुछ, वो सब भेज के YouTube videos link करके डाल दिया मैंने. I sent them. And so that was that kind of helped, and these multiple coming out conversations kind of helped them also, like how I was transitioning, they are transitioning with me. So that kind of helped, that the process took like 5-6 years to really like build and their understanding and all of that. And yeah, and can I talk about the role of cinema and media in this? Like, I wish I could go back in time and show the conversation of sexuality started with my mom when we came back from watching Margarita with a Straw. And that's when I was like, Mom, but what if I am gay? And so, like, this is how you start like talking, feeling out for what their thoughts are on these subjects, because everyone will have thoughts. Like, they will have some thoughts about these things. And then my mother's like, oh, I had a gay friend back in college. So there we go. Okay, let's talk about that. So, like, this role of cinema and media, there's so many great films. Queer cinema is like, there's so much out there, guys. So ever you need resources, let me know.
Personally, I believe that before coming out to parents, we need to be sure, or anybody as a matter of fact, we ourselves need to be sure about what we are coming out as. Secondly, instead of saying, Mom, I'm gay, directly, one would start with, Mom, what do you think of gay people? Try to gauge, like what are their views on homosexuality or gender diverse people, and then slowly begin up the conversation or try to sensitize them, try to help them understand about the queer community. They might have some preconceived notions or misconceptions. Try to clarify those with them, and then probably come out to your parents. Like in my parents' case, there were a lot of misconceptions they had. They thought it's a phase, so I had to explain them that sexuality is not a phase. They thought probably I'm being influenced or I've caught it from someone. Then I had to tell them that you become gay by hanging out with gay people.
And it's a
Uh,
fad, all of that.
Yes, and sometimes they think that it's a foreign concept or Western import idea. Then you have to tell them give them references from Mahabharata and our mythology and our temples. Sometimes they think that it's unnatural. You have to tell them that there are animals also who are homosexuals. So you need to understand that what are some of the misconceptions they have, clarify those misconceptions, and sometimes appeal to their core values. For example, if your parents are somebody who are religious, then you could talk to them about shikhandi or anything. If your parents are somebody who are scientific and rational, then tell them about it being natural. Talk to them about World Health Organization's position statement on homosexuality not being disease, or gender diverse people or transgenderism not being a disease. So identify what are their values in life, or sometimes the simple value could be of loving their child and wanting the best for their child, and help them understand that this is who I am and this is how I wish to live, and it would make me happy for you to understand and accept it. So these are the things, like I believe, like to begin with, helping parents understand and accept. And this is just about coming out to our parents, but generally, like in society, how do you make parents be more queer inclusive regardless of their children are gay or no? I think every child has that responsibility to educate their parents about gender diverse people and yeah. and open up conversations with parents, like khane ke time pe, yaar, whenever you are hanging out, you could just talk about different topics, right? And not shy away from these topics, especially if you are an ally. You need to use your connection with your parents to open up with them about these conversations and help them be an ally as well.
I just want to ask Vishal a question. You just said something that I just don't sit well with, which is
Haha.
it's every child's responsibility to educate their parents for gender diversity. I feel like that is so hard. Why should it be our responsibility only? Why
Yeah.
can't they educate themselves about like their trans kid?
Agree. But then again, we have the privilege of being born in a generation who understand these things,
Yeah, but what
and
if
they are somebody for whom this is a topic that is alien. So, like knowledge travels from somebody who's aware to somebody who's ignorant. And
even we are not fully aware, yeah? Like,
I understand comparatively,
uh,
our generation or those who are studying in college right now have more exposure due to social media or having friends around them who are queer and more knowledge about queer rights compared to their parents.
I
so,
think तुम दोनों ने बहुत अच्छी डिबेट ओपन की है oppressor versus oppressed and the right of the importance that you do not actually make the oppressed actually have much more क्या कहते हैं take on much more than they deserve to. But I think कि at the root of it, at least what I feel is कि हम often सोचते हैं कि ये conversation हमें खुद करनी पड़ेगी जो ज़रूरी नहीं है, you know. You don't have to do the conversation. It's really very simple, like any other issue. What would you do if you want to know about a particular issue? You hear about a play which is about caste, you go and write, attend the play, and then you think about it, right? So there are many plays around LGBTQ. There are beautiful films. You just watch a film. You don't even have to talk after that. You just watch a film and or a web series. It's more than enough. And इतना सारा content आसपास भरा हुआ है. I'll tell you कि at least मेरी mother है. It took a lot of time. खुद से ही उसने अपना कराया. But for her, it was just, she needed to hear all this in Marathi. My mother is Maharashtrian. So she had to listen to news channels in Marathi. Man with great big activists उससे कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ा. Sorry for the language, but it needed her to hear it in her own language, right? And so similarly, and so if you talk about my sister's in-laws, right? I have a twin sister. They have been watching all kinds of films, and they come back and they have things to say. So it's not like always your responsibility. Yes, it would be very incredibly helpful if a community started directing people to resources. That's not their responsibility, but just the times we stay in, it will help the movement to expand the learning. But self growth in the end, Vishal, I am leading to Lauren, वो सबकी खुद की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है ना. हम आपको उस तरफ पुश कर सकते हैं, बट जेन्युइनली वो अपनी खुद से आना चाहिए to want to know more. I think ignorance creates a lot of violence and harm. So it should never be on somebody else to, educate you. You need to like cultivate, and similarly I feel about inclusion की एक it's like a discipline. जैसे आप फिटनेस करते हो वैसे आपको अपने खुद में इंक्लूजन, रीडिंग अप, सेल्फ ग्रोथ, सेल्फ वर्क का आपको बिल्ड करना पड़ता है मसल. वो नेचुरली नहीं आता है, but that doesn't mean कि मुझे naturally नहीं आएगा तो I will never do it. So that's the position I'm coming from. I agree with both of you.
So I just
because
seeing as there is this uniformity in all three of you discussing about media, that was actually going to be my next question. I just want to talk to about mainstream media. Like all of you have mentioned, mainstream media is a very helpful way to educate people about all the things relating to the queer community. And Lauren, seeing as you've stemmed from also, you've participated in mainstream media particularly, any experiences you feel you want to share that this is how the industry works? There's something different when you're stepping into that role. What does that role mean for you and expressing it to the community itself?
I didn't understand your question, but shall I talk from what I think you're asking me about mainstream? What exactly?
See, I'm asking you about, see, you've stepped into that role of Rit in Mismatch, right? So I just want to understand, you've probably watched or expressed mainstream media to your parents to explain what queer community is. Now that you've stepped in that role yourself, is that a different experience? Do you feel a sense of satisfaction that I am now stepping into the role of educating the people how I wanted it back then?
I don't think it came from like activism. I only wanted to act, and I'm having to step into activism, which I don't mind, but I actually only wanted to act. And playing Rith, so you can't be someone who you can't see, and I couldn't see me growing up, so I became me on TV so that I could see me. And that for me was really cool. For watching Rit, like, was a spiritual experience. It was like, oh my god, like, and I can't even tell you what it was like first time watching myself like that. And I've been on camera in movies before, but like Rit ka experience though was just like, oh my god. And so yeah, but mainstream I don't think we are getting a queer knowledge and education from mainstream media. I would like to like shift that it's actually from indie and far more independent films, and far more like when I'm talking about these mainstream media knowledge, like Margarita with a Straw, Fire, even like other works, Pose, and all of that, like these are, again, I don't think Mismatch is mainstream, but that's also just like one layer of one way of a trans story, and there can be issues found in that as well. But point is, like, there's so much other that can help educate, like Paris is Burning and stuff like that, which I used to kind of educate myself. The industry, although, has a lot to obviously do a lot. In front of the camera is fine. We need more people behind the camera, writing, directing, makeup, costume. Right now, recently I was on a shoot, and I made sure that I take like people from like my community, just because I knew it will make a difference um, on camera. So I took my makeup artist and hair person from the community, and we worked together. And dude, the ease that I had to just be myself, even watching Rani Kohinoor, be with me on set, like, or, it was just like, oh my God, like, I'm safe because no one else is here. I mean, the like we talked about, the institutions don't have that kind of, yeah, we all want to belong, and we just want to be able to feel like, yeah, we belong here. And so that takes a while, because right now we are very few of us scattered around, and some of us are visible, some of us are not, so that's also there. So yeah, mainstream media has a lot to do, lot of work to do as well. Yeah, but issues that I faced were just sitting on the left, girls are sitting on the right, and I'm like, okay, where do I sit? And then like feeling dysphoric, and then being like, okay, I'll just skip this audition, and then just like leave. And so I, over the years, have with my therapist and stuff, like build resources around me to support me with my work in acting, and that has helped a lot. But that's something like जो बाहर नहीं है, like कोई, these are things I've had to do myself, and इसके बाद मैं अपने parents को भी educate करूँ, और वो responsibility भी मेरी है, वो सब मैं नहीं ले सकती, I can't do all of that. So, but yeah, like my parents thankfully took their years and did their stuff and came on board. And for them also watching Rit, I think my dad said इसमें तुमने better किया है लारा से. I was like, okay, thanks. Thanks. So yeah, so he's they've also taken their time, and it's super amazing to have your parents watch your work and appreciate your work. And yeah, I feel grateful.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Lauren. See, definitely mainstream media में conversations help. It changes the social fabric completely. We are in India very, very heavy community, or actually South Asian communities in general. हम storytelling में ज़्यादा विश्वास करते हैं. हमारे ads भी आप देखोगे, if you went to the north and now you're in the global south, you will see कि पूरी तरह से हमारा storytelling based है. That's the way we sort of understand. So films and cinema are a big part of our thing, and they've actually opened up a lot of conversation. The bigger the film is, the more conversation it creates. If you talk about Dostana, okay, sure, community hated Dostana, but Dostana is the film that brought the conversation into the drawing room of everyone. Karan Johar is the one who's made it people identify, not very well, but उन्हें identify करना चालू कर दिया कि he is gay or whatever. तब तक इतना you had Bobby Darling, but not really. And whatever you say, Dostana was the first representation where the mother accepted the two children in screen. First time the Indians saw that there are rights for queer people in other countries. So it was also uh, problematic but educated at the same time. And since then, social media and mainstream media has changed. I think OTT platforms have also their own independence brought a lot of interesting dynamics. So what has ended up happening is दोस्ताना से अभी when you talk to college students उनने कुछ ना कुछ Netflix series देखा होगा, Prime series कुछ तो देखा है, so they are all of the attitude that you have to be friendly, or they have some sense or clue of these identities, right? But where did that come from? उसकी पीछे की स्टोरी ये है कि जब आप नेटफ्लिक्स को एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म देखोगे, बाय पॉलिसी दे रिक्वायर shows to have representation of marginalized communities. Okay. Sometimes I find Netflix very irritating कि यार तुमने ये queer actor क्यों दबा दिया है, उसके अंदर जरूरत भी नहीं है. Okay. But whatever you say, because of that policy, you have seen more stories of people with disabilities, people with marginalization, blah blah blah. है ना? तो जब आप push for inclusion at a policy level करते हो, it actually translates into change and into social change. So that's a very kind of big move. Okay. And also, like, once they have been forced to kind of put the characters in, so first 2-3 times उनको समझ में नहीं आ रहा था, कुछ भी गंदा सा बना दिया था. But now over a period of time, because वो demand हो गई है, they are forced to then, the industry as such has to lean into how will be inclusive in every aspect of the thing. And so moving forward, you will see more OTT content which will be inclusive, right? My fear is that OTT has been able to bloom like this also because, like, some multinational companies coming in, the voice of inclusion being strong. But in India, we are trying to police OTT, YouTube platforms. We are trying to just police the narrative. So it can go both ways. कि कल अगर उन्होंने कहा कि अरे हमको नेगेटिव ही दिखाना है, तो वो भी हो सकता है. बट इतना हो गया है कि अभी जो मीडिया स्पेस है, because of policy, they were forced to think about inclusion. They're slowly getting better. Things like Mumbai International Queer Film Festival, there's also, they actually go and attend. Most people are in Bombay, तो उनको थोड़ा थोड़ा तो sensitivity आ रही है. But मतलब जितना होना चाहिए वो फिर भी, if there are not enough queer people hired, it will continue to be stories where the queer relationship doesn't survive. वो breakup हो गया, या पेरेंट्स गुस्सा हो गए, या पता नहीं स्कूल में बुलिंग हो गई, किसी को आपने सुसाइड करवा दिया, एक का मर्डर करा दिया, रेप करवा दिया. Like, I'm really tired of those stories, so which is why I'm very happy with Instagram and reels and this different kind of community which is actually showing you, like, uh, lived reality of what it is like to be a couple. These are very happy content. So yeah, we can obviously never underestimate the power of media in any format. It's a very, very important. And also to say to you, Lauren, I don't think you may have fully you're playing it, but I'm not sure how much you're realizing it, because you are in the process as an artist, right? But at the end of the day, performing arts or any kind of art stems also, from a kind of activism. उसमें जुड़ा हुआ होता है activism. और the more you get aware of the activism ना, जो performance है या जो art है, जो भी creative expression है, उसमें ना nuance और ये बहुत बदल जाता है. So you are doing it without realizing it. But it is actually very much a very strong and the most powerful form of activism. Art is the most powerful form of activism.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will, like, kind of ask you to sit with this thought that if you could blend that activist spirit within it and also acknowledge that you are activist inside.
I
It's not only about grassroots, तो आप हो तो वो बहुत पावरफुल बनेगा. मैंने भी बहुत एक्चुअली क्वेयर पीपल को देखा है जो शुरू में ना वो ठीक है डांस करना चाहते हैं, बट दे आर नॉट फीलिंग लाइक दे आर नॉट फिटिंग इनटू द डांस कम्युनिटी. ऐसा कि यार कोई भी आर्टिस्ट है वो लीन इन करता है टू देयर बैकग्राउंड, देयर हिस्ट्री. इट शेप्स देम, द डायनामिक्स एंड सोशल. सो stop, like, to them, not stop, but saying that acknowledge you're from the queer community, there's a queer history, you can lean into this queer history and push that queerness into your medium. And I have, like, really seen a lot of change happen, through that. So yeah, I feel like like the power Lauren has, you people in the mainstream media, is going to be like exponential in comparison to somebody who's grassroots. So we need you to remember that and push forward, like that.
Thank you,
So,
Sonal. I also just want to respond that, like, I have struggled with my own, like, I can't do it alone, and I can't do it alone. That's why I'm so glad that I'm here and I can, take this conversation forward with anyone, because I'm really looking out for assistance as well in terms of how to, because I'm really looking to build that community and that support system in a way that I can also then further the art and the activism thing.
या सो एक्चुअली क्या है ना कि पहले कुछ 5-10 साल पहले लाइक आई सेड हम सब मिल लेते थे तो कुछ ना कुछ कॉन्वर्सेशंस हो जाती थी. अभी क्या हो गया, बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी हो गई है कम्युनिटी. But then just to remind you that we are here just for this. We are also working. I feel we could work harder, but to transfer some of that knowledge that older people have given to you. So lean into back to your community, right? There is a history there. It's a very powerful history. It can motivate your form like anything, you know? Yeah.
See, we've covered like media and OTT platforms. I also want to hear from Vishal about books. I feel like books are also new ways. I've read people, new authors coming up talking about all these topics and everything. I feel like, Vishal, if you could enlighten us or give us more about your thoughts on books and their role in this matter.
Compared to the cinema and teleseries and everything, books are doing fairly well job. Because there are a lot of queer writers, like gender diverse writers, sexually diverse writers. There are a lot of books that are being written every day about queer history, about fiction, and about well-being of queer people, like and queer literature and literature related to LGBTIQA has always been there. Like Kama Sutra talks about same-sex love. Mahabharata talks about Shikhandi. So I feel writing-wise, so far we have done great job. In the past 2 decades, especially, I've seen books which have been made into movies, which have succeeded very well. I see a lot of cis-het people buy queer literature at my bookstore. I see 13-year-old girls who are crazy for boy love stories. And then there are people who like WLW. It's a term which I recently came to know, that women love women literature, that it's called women love women literature. And I read a lot personally. So I feel that literature wise, and a lot of awards and have been given to books that are based on queer lives. Like I'm currently started reading a book called Martyr, which is about queer relationship as well, and it won a lot of awards and everything, literary awards. So literature wise, we are so far compared to all the other media far ahead in inclusion, in talking about and documenting. Um, Entertainment wise, there are a lot of good books, but there could be more about history of queer people in India. Like I have a book right here. Like this is a book called Out of Line and Offline by Pawan Dhal, which talks about queer history in India. I wish there were more books written like this, and more writers should be encouraged to write about queer history about India. Like either it is going way back in the past, like Khajuraho and everything, or it is Abhi in the past 4-5 decades. But what about the in betweens? I think Ruth Varita wrote a book about same-sex love in India, which does talk about different timelines, like in the 1500s, in the 1200s, the Khusros and everything. But I wish more authors would write and research about that, like Devdutt and everybody are doing, but more people could write about the history. But as far as fiction is concerned, I think there are a lot of books, and every day new books are coming. I'm there at the bookstore selling these books, and I can tell you that if somebody who's watching this who has not read a queer romance, it's time for you to go to a bookstore and ask for queer romance, and get an insight into our feelings and our love and everything.
Vishal, you're living the dream. You're like head
I
over
run a bookstore.
store. Like that's so cool.
Yeah, I'll just quickly show you my collection here. A lot of queer books. Since we are talking about books, there is Devdutt Patnaik's Marriage, which talks about marriages of all kinds. And I will not claim that I've read all of them, but I'm very proud to own all these books. When I said that books have been written about queer rights for many years, I was referring to Bindu Madhav Khire, who in the 1990s wrote about, queer relationships, about intersex people, about transgender people. So from at least 3 decades, I know Bindu has been publishing these books, and I have been selling them at my bookstore since 2 decades. So yeah,
Okay, perfect. So, seeing as we've covered forms of media now, we've covered OTT, we've covered mainstream media and books as well. I want to talk about something more real and people shifting from colleges to say corporate cultures and stepping into work cultures as well. Because I realize that as college students, we also discuss these matters amongst ourselves that when you go to work, how does that affect you in terms of being queer and in those scenarios. So I want someone, if you guys could shed some light upon how does being queer affect you in like the corporate culture or the work culture, and how can you like adapt to it in that environment?
I think like you need to change your question to from adapting what can other people do to make it safer. That's the first piece. Like I feel like the onus of making the space safe is always in the hands of the organization. It cannot be in the hand of the employee. एक तो एम्प्लॉयज़ का इतना सारा टर्नओवर होता रहता है that if you expect that one employee will come and create change, it's impossible. It will not work. So what are ways that an organization can make it a safe place is of course one through their policy. And when we talk about policy, policy includes जैसे कि विशाल ने पहले बोला कि अगर मेरे साथ कुछ गड़बड़ होती है तो फिर who do I reach out to? So there needs to be a space where there needs to be a mechanism in case there is a safety issue. There is a way of holding people accountable. But beyond safety and accountability, how do you make it even more supportive, like having insurance for partners, recognizing in your communication partners, so like recognizing different pronouns in the administrative infrastructure or the facility. But other than that, like I will say, कि when it comes to culture, because culture will eat policy for breakfast. कोई भी employee जाता है, हमको कुछ नहीं पता होता है. I need to know one employee. मेरी life में अब तक नहीं मिला है, तो HR में ना हो और उसने HR policy वाकई front to end तक पढ़ी है. कोई नहीं पढ़ता है. Okay. So now the thing is कि so then you need to also work on the culture. And so, like I said, other than because there's so much employee turnover, it's very important that you sensitize and you regularly sensitize. It's not just a one-time initiative. At least try to do it once in 4 weeks. And again, look at your hiring. The way you people are hiring, the kind of people who are coming in. Is there an employee resource group? Are there gender-neutral washrooms? Are there support after transition? Are we having conversations where Pride Month is being celebrated? Are you acknowledging the difference? How are employees interacting with each other? Have you built the space for people to sort of understand from different dynamics? एक ये भी होता है, हैविंग सेड ऑल दैट बहुत ग्रेट है, लेकिन आप एज यंग पीपल जब आप अंदर जा रहे हो, देयर इज अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग विच यू विल ऑल्सो फेस, देयर इज अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग एट दिस मोमेंट kind of intergenerational divide. Okay, a lot of people find that young people talking about mental health is a problem, or young people talking about queerness is a problem, and these are basically the older boomer generation things कि ये these are a bunch of snowflakes, है ना, और इनको छोटे छोटे काम नहीं आते और हर चीज़ पे they have no mental resilience or agency to do things. But I will say as a queer community we face that already, and what we can say is that the way to work around this, because queerness it will always come with mental health challenges at work. One of the things that happens with queer people is of course आप continuously self edit कर रहे हो, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, वो आप पे एक loneliness isolation लाता है. But there's another extreme also. A queer person tries to also majorly, you will find that he'll try to outperform or overperform to prove that we belong here. So that will be also like create a lot of burnout, and so you have to kind of manage these two. So what really does work is to try to push for more employee resource groups that can support, and through those employee resource groups create a safe space for communities which will keep coming in. Because जैसे मैंने कहा टर्नओवर आता रहेगा तो वो आप इतना बदल नहीं सकते, बट अगर कल्चर बदलने लगता है slowly slowly, you see people around you have seen people change and the conversation also change. But be prepared for a huge resistance from the older communities, because it's a generation gap, it's a generation divide which you're going to face. The problem is that they have grown up in a heteronormative society where there has never been any queer people out in the workplace, and cut to young people coming in colorful clothes and being like, मैं तो non-binary, मैं gender queer. They're like, what the fuck is happening? for them. Like they don't think this or see this as real. So there is this huge divide, in the middle, which you have to sort of be patient with and work towards pushing for intergenerational, conversation. एंड में क्या है, लीडरशिप ये बूमर जनरेशन है अनफॉर्चुनेटली, and you need to have them on your side to change policy. So you have to do that kind of walk.
If I could add to that, yeah, like there's also this. I have a lot of things to say, and then I don't know how to start. There are a lot of these, looking for queer adults also, like in the workspace. Like let's not assume that only हम लोग young वाले सिर्फ gay or queer ढूंढ रहे हैं. I feel so. We touched upon this in the beginning of our conversation about older queers and how they are having their own discoveries now that we are talking and we have the language for all of this. Like imagine their discoveries in their spaces. So I would also say, like in your workspace, look for those people, like if at all you are able to find them, because it'll be so interesting to also have that. So then to bridge that intergenerational gap also a little bit. And also this is all things that I wish when I was entering the workforce. I wish I had a stronger sense of community around me, apart from my parents, because at that time parents were also taking their time. Apart from my parents, who I could emotionally rely on, like, and that I mean friends. I really, really, really want to push that idea because, like Sonal said, the spaces that you all might enter, I'm not ready right now. We know the realities we live in. There's a lot of work to do. Things are not going to be, given to you in a silver platter, and it's not going that you are going to face challenges. And so that your mental health is supported and you are supported, please make sure that you create a community around you where you actually feel safe, you can be yourself, ताकि जो challenges work पे हैं, at least कहीं जाके तुम कहीं vent कर सकते हो, या एक जगह है जहाँ तुमको लोग accept करते हैं और तुम अपने तरह जी सकते हो. Because the challenges with that, when you're constantly being, entering rooms, doing work and constantly being erased, to not have a space, then when you go back home, honey, you have mental health challenges that you will deal with. And then, yeah, like I am right now, doing a lot of that, and I wish I could have created that support around me so I didn't struggle so much at some point. That I wanted to say. Looking for queer adults. Yeah, covered.
Vishal, you want to add anything to that?
I think pretty much both of them covered everything that I wanted to say. I just also want to say that we spend most of our waking hours at work, if you get to see, and it's not a place where people should be wearing a mask every day. It's not good for their mental health and the productivity, which eventually would, the company would suffer if its employees are not being productive, and if they're not happy. So I think this realization should come with the corporates and employers, that if you create spaces where people are able to be themselves, their productivity is going to tremendously increase, and it's going to give you better outputs. Because at the end of the day, most entrepreneurs, corporates, employers, उनको profit चाहिए, तो उनको ये दिखाना पड़ेगा कि तुम्हारा employee खुश है, अगर जैसा चाहिए वैसा रह सकता है, तो उसके काम में फर्क पड़ने वाला है. He's going to be more productive that way.
वो भी, और इंक्लूसिविटी कितना फायदेमंद है सबके लिए. लाइक प्रॉफिट्स की बात कर रहे हैं तो प्रॉफिट्स में समझाएंगे हम कि इंक्लूसिविटी कितने प्रॉफिट्स ला सकता है तुम्हें, पर वो अलग डिबेट.
And also, like when you are inclusive, right, it creates a culture which creates a safe space for everyone. So if there is a corporate where people are working and they have a very strict gender dressing policy code, right? So queer people don't feel comfortable, but then that is the same workplace which will police a younger woman for wearing a skirt that is above her knee. So the thing is, when you change a dress policy like that and allow people to be free, you are actually allowing freedom for everyone. Similar thing when you work with people with disabilities and you are creating, a navigation tools for people who are visually impaired. It also helps with people who are aging. So it is actually a win-win situation for everyone, and that is the message that we have to drive. कि आप किसी को कुछ अलग कुछ नहीं दे रहे हो, आप एक्चुअली सबके लिए स्पेस क्रिएट कर रहे हो, और ये आपको इस एंड में प्रॉफिट भी दे रहा है.
I just want to understand something. you mentioned that it's wrong for me to ask the question to adapt. While I agree with you that the corporates and the organizations themselves should shape themselves to include people, but seeing as we're passing out from college, what can we actually do? Like, what is there any tangible thing we can do to change their mindset? Because I feel like it's very difficult to change the mindset of a corporation. Ki you need to be more inclusive. Yes, you talked about profitability. How do we explain to these corporations that yes, you do need to be inclusive of students, of queer people, and all of these communities? So it's difficult to
हाँ
convince them.
ठीक है ठीक है. I think मेरा difficulty with the word adapt is because it gives you a sense कि how do you fit into the workplace as is. For me, if you had said how do you navigate going in, I would be better. Because the thing is, you have to, when you go in as a queer person, एक तो of course it really helps कि अगर आप already community से connected हो, because there are certain sort of mental health challenges within that as well. I think what helps is that कि if you you know, as much as possible, lean into actually being who you are authentically. And if there is if you're finding issues with that, don't take it as something that you have to self censor or self edit. Then you have to push the organization for a sensitization. That's what helps. But अगर आप बहुत ही क्लोजेटेड टाइप के हो और आपको एकदम ऐसे बैठ के हीरो नहीं बन, हीरो तो छोड़ो, एक्टिविज्म आपके बोन्स में नहीं है, आपको ये सब नहीं करना है. So then what I would advise is that then you actually take external help from communities and experts to come in and create an environment that is more friendly. Um, this is why I keep saying ki also if you have a few allies if they push, it becomes sort of easier. But I really feel, again, that's why I said adapt and navigate, ki there is, I would never tell a queer person to come out at their workplace unless they are ready, because there are really huge safety challenges, that almost all of us, the three of us in the call, can also tell you ki what has happened when we are outed without us being prepared for it. So take your own sweet time. There's nothing wrong in self-editing or self-censoring at your work. But if you can move forward from that and work in therapy to build more agency to sort of be out, you will find that a lot of the self-censoring that you are doing is something you can actually manage really well and push back against. And there is a very huge community sort of behind you who can help you challenge the system, right? um, yeah, that's what I'd say. It is actually quite definitely challenging. तो जब आप किसी को सेल्फ केयर के बारे में बोलते हो, आई वुड ऑलवेज से कि सेल्फ केयर एक तो होता है कि जब मैं किसी को बोलूँ आप जाओ थेरेपी में, है ना, बट उससे दुनिया नहीं बदलने वाली है. सो आई फील लाइक एज कम्युनिटीज we have to always be prepared for self-care, create more spaces of people coming together. In workplaces, it will also help if you can talk to older queer people because they would have navigated the landscape before you. So if you are facing a particular problem at the workplace, would encourage you to share it in a community space where older people can advise you on how to navigate that, because we almost all of us have done it. And वो काफ़ी specific होता है. It's not one. जब आपके ऊपर कोई workplace discrimination and humiliation होगी, it will not be you are gay therefore blah blah. Never. It's going to be that somebody saying you're not performing very well, or somebody trying to be over scrutinized, you don't come on time, or people not going out with you, them demoting you, saying underperformance when you've done overperformance. So it will be in very insidious kind of ways. So sometimes it's difficult to identify कि ये मेरे gender sex sexuality की वजह से हुआ, and to actually place ये ऐसा है, which is then very helpful if you talk to older queer people who can then guide you कि how do you navigate through the system. एंड में आपको हम कम्युनिटी क्यों बिल्ड कर रहे हैं ना, हम कम्युनिटी इसलिए बिल्ड कर रहे हैं, लाइक आई वुड बी वेरी हैप्पीएस्ट टुमारो इफ यू डोंट नीड अ कम्युनिटी, लाइक यू नो और या फिर हमारे सारे सीबीओस पे ताला लग जाए, दैट बिकॉज दैट वुड मीन कि सारी सिस्टम्स काफ़ी फ्रेंडली हैं, सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है, बट अब ऐसा नहीं है. सो विच इज़ वाई इट्स इम्पॉर्टेंट टू लीन to back to your community, which is actually very much shaping itself to handle these situations. So I am in worked 18 years. I am an activist who's been trained to be a voice that can support others to navigate through these challenges. So आपके लिए बन रही है वो जगह, so use it. Yeah.
So, covering as all three of you, we've covered the fact that we need to create change, right? And I see all three of you are contributing change in your own ways. And I want to talk about how you got into activism and how does that go forward? How do more people get into activism? Seeing Vishal, you have Abhiman Kolhapur as well. You started a movement like that. Lauren has Mismatch and she's representing, she's acting. Sonal has also worked as a panelist at different companies as well. And you, all of you guys are creating change. I want to understand, how do you get into this? How do you start making change, making a difference in the community?
So I'll start by sharing the reason why we started Abhiman here. I lost three friends to suicide over a span of 2 years. And then we felt that we need to do something. This was in the year 2017. That is where I invited a few gay friends over and told them, "Ki, we need to do something, create a sort of safe space where people can come and be themselves." And that is where Abhiman started. And I had no clue एक्टिविज्म क्या होता है, एनजीओ क्या होता है, इनिशिएटिव क्या होता है, सीबीओ क्या होता है. I just put up a status on Facebook saying that we've lost a dear friend and these incidences are occurring very frequently and we need some guidance on how we can organize to make sure that these things don't happen again. And one very great activist, Dinesh Chopade from Humsafar Trust, just messaged me like, call me. He called me and guided me on how to start this initiative. And we started having initially we started having these potluck dinners. We would not meet at coffee shops, restaurants or anything, because चार पांच queer people एक साथ आ गए तो बहुत visible हो जाता है small town में, and you then people can just deduce कि these are gay people करके. So initially we were meeting in private spaces and there was a space where people could be themselves. They could share their problems, come up with solutions together, and this somehow I feel helped the community. uh, you know. But what happened, although we got a safe space to express ourselves and be ourselves for once a week or once in 15 days, there were external problems that constantly kept coming, like somebody is being thrown out, somebody is being blackmailed and everything. There we decided that we have to sort of build a bridge between the community and the society. And then we decided that we need to go to police stations, hospitals, colleges, conduct sensitization sessions, and that's how our initiative started. And in our journey we realized that we need to do advocacy, we need to do capacity building, we need to make sure we take care of our own mental health in the whole process, because it can be it can sometimes screw over with your own mental health trying to help people and everything. So yeah, that's how our journey started. That's how we started Abhiman, and so far, all what we've done is like create awareness, uh, help the community by like building their capacities, advocacy, and crisis management and everything. And also for past couple of years we've also started having events and activities where we celebrate our identities, and that has brought some queer joy to the community in Kolhapur. And that is also very important. The queer joy is very important.
I think for
Absolutely.
me, नहीं मेरे लिए तो था कि I think films played a very big role. I also had my own instances of homophobia and in the first workplace and in the educational institute. And bachpan se I wanted to get into filmmaking actually. So after leaving my first workplace and lot of homophobia, I went into counseling and started becoming more, I would say, accepting of my own identity, not proud, accepting of my own identity. एंड फिर वहाँ से ये हुआ कि देयर वाज अ फिल्म फेस्टिवल दैट वाज हैपनिंग, अ क्वियर फिल्म फेस्टिवल, एंड दैट्स व्हेन आई वेंट टू अटेंड द फिल्म फेस्टिवल थिंग्स रियली चेंज्ड फॉर मी बिकॉज आई सॉ सम वेरी brilliant powerful films, and that's when I decided to join this Transcend Trust. It's an LGBTQ NGO as an assistant director. तब तक मैंने ऐसे फ्री के लिए असिस्टेंट डायरेक्टरशिप कर ली थी कुछ टीवी शोज पे, but they were the first one to offer money. And the interesting thing was that that project was actually a oral history project where they were documenting 20 LGBT figures who have changed the movement over the last 30 years. ये 2009-2010 की बात है. And I was an AD, so I had to actually transcribe what was being said, and I had to also mark the for the editor ki kahan kya bola ja raha hai. So in the process, I had to like it would be a 2 day interview, a 8 or 9 hour interview, but in the process, I had to hear their voices over and over again 2 3 times. So I kept hearing about these activists and all that they've done in India, and that changed something about me. I was like कि पिछले 30 साल से ये लोग कर रहे हैं, इतने trying times में कर रहे हैं, इतने difficult situations manage कर लिए हैं. I am in 2009. The judgment is passed. What is preventing me from just doing a simple community event? So for us also, it started like that. We started with small community events, and because that's how community comes, they want to do something pleasurable, and then over a time you build it bigger, and of course you realize ki obviously they have other social issues, and then you learn how to connect them bigger hota jata hai. And I had my own experience also of being in the media. One is talking to newspapers and being in debates, but also acting. So I acted in a Bollywood film, and I was on a television show called Connected Hum Tum. It was way back in 2013 2014 as a openly queer person. So also because of that kind of public nature, I had you had more access to conversations, information, more direct feedback from people around these subjects. So when you reach a point after some time where you realize that that knowledge is a privilege, and you have to give it back to the community. You have to pay it forward. It will occur to you after some time. So from that point, I think it switched to activism. I also started realizing कि बहुत लोग जो अपने खुद को activist बोल रहे हैं वो है नहीं. Actually, this is just a person who's queer and is like, now I'm an activist. But to be an activist is actually to push for change in some way or the other. Systemic change. Sure, it will begin with you creating conversations, but it has to be coming with an intent that this is a continual process which will happen all your life. So that was the story for me, at least.
I would like to talk about theater and the role it played in my kind of activism, if at all. I started acting with theater only in college in St. Stephen's, and through that play and just realizing the power of storytelling and realizing that. That's when I decided to study further. I went into drama. I mean, not clearly right after. After college, I went to Manali. I was teaching in a school. I was teaching English from 4th to 10th, and that's when I realized the power of storytelling and the power of, because I was using drama in the classrooms, and I realized, wow, like theater is a great tool to like engage with students, and it was a form of acting because I was the storyteller. I had an audience, and my books were the content. So it felt like, wow, like I'm really liking this, and also because students were, even the least interested guy was the most interested by the end of the class. So I was like, okay, there's something here, and so I decided to study acting in drama school. And through that, through just theater and understanding how you can really change mindset, socially, politically, talking about these subjects, that's what I wanted to do. But then I realized that, oh, these things are not being written enough, or jitna mujhe chahiye, like koi mujhe wo de nahi raha hai. So then being pushed to also then create your own stories. Right now I'm also supporting young teenagers and young writers who to help craft their own theater pieces, and to help craft their, like, as a dramaturg, like, work with them on their theater performances and just support them in these small bits, because they're writing some amazing stuff. And they're where I was, alone, being like, kon kahan. So I want to give them what I didn't have. And education wise, like in IB and IGCSE school, if any of the listeners are here, there's this thing called CAS, which is creativity, activity, and service. So I told my school that I want to, for 2 years I did the we made theater, bringing these issues, we talked about these issues, and we made a theater performance for their CAS work. And so that way, not only the theater students got involved, but the whole batch got involved. So the whole batch was making theater with the theater students, talking about these issues. And I realized that that was a really, really smart move on my part, as a IB teacher, because I didn't just limit theater to just the classroom, and then the whole batch was like talking about it, which did really well. So yeah, I think the power of storytelling is huge, and I just want to get better at it. And yeah.
So I want to talk about, see, as all of you have mentioned, the importance of allyship in the community. I want to know, how can a person be a better ally, and what is the role and the importance of an ally in today's community?
One thing, like I would also, yeah, like better allies, compassion. If you don't understand it, it's okay, Google, Chat GPT. But compassion, like you don't need to understand it to love me, you don't need to understand it to connect with me, you don't need to understand me to talk to me, you don't need to understand it to, have chai with me. So like, I think you do, we'll get there, but pehle to connection happens with just existing and being with the person. One chai wala example I wanted to give, which I explained to my parents about, because they were struggling with the pronouns and stuff. And I said that, it's as simple as making tea. And I got it from social media only. Someone was saying that if I say I would like my chai with 1 cup chini and milk, and you're going on giving me like black chai, black chai, black chai, it's pronounced as simple as that. I've said that I like 1 cup chini and milk, and you're going on giving me black tea. It's like, it's as simple as that. Just like, don't you want to give me the kind of chai I want to drink? Like, we do that, we function like that as human beings. So why should we be any different when it's about queer and trans politics?
I think what I can add is that it's to me, an ally has always been like somebody who's a friend, who will be there for me, who's trying to learn about the issue whether I'm around or not, who's trying to understand me better, and if they hear something that is might be harmful for me, they are stepping up sort of against that. Other cheese jo abhi I saw happen, right, it will happen with you that you will end up misgendering somebody, or saying something just because of an unconscious bias that you don't. So, but you have to be prepared to be corrected, and use that as an opportunity to understand more, you know, and don't let it make you afraid of engaging with the community. Um, because what we're not worried about you making mistakes. What we want from you is a continuous effort to learn. मैंने भी बहुत misgender विंजर किया है. I'll teach you a trick which has helped me. If you are not able to, kind of switch to a particular pronoun, then just use the name of the person. You won't need to use any kind of gender markers when you use the name in a sentence, particularly in English. So begin with some of those kind of things with pronouns. But I'll say ki um, remember, it's a journey. Your conditioning has been longer than your allyship, right? So don't hold yourself so rigidly, uh, to the fact that you're not able to learn fast enough. You will learn with community. You will sort of learn. अदर थिंग विद allyship, आई अगेन से ना कि ये तो जब आप इंक्लूजन सीख रहे होते हो, वो धीरे धीरे it's a kind of like a muscle building only. So you have to start it's very interesting actually, allyship. It starts opening up your eyes to quite a few things. So it's just the simple things. Like, I'll tell you, there's a friend of mine, and I, although I'm such a big activist, I used to have a fear of going into the men's section to pick up shirts, right? So that friend of mine, all they did was that they knew कि मेरा style क्या है. They said चलो men's section चलेंगे, ठीक है, और सीधा उठा के they have just like picked up clothes. And now of course I've become very comfortable, but I needed that one friend to be like push my gender boundaries a little bit कि अच्छा ये try कर ले, वो try कर ले, ये अच्छा लग रहा है, वो अच्छा लग रहा है. And also like in general respectful. अगर कोई कुछ बोल रहा है कि यार तुमने pronoun फटाफट change कर लो into that thing. Sorry में मत घुसो, because like I feel like कि sorry का क्या है, then I have to tell you no, it's okay, it's not okay. बस फटाफट से उसमें change करो, इतना heavy मत रखो. With the allyship, and jitna ho sake, try to do your own self reading. Your friend can help you, but remember that there are 20,000 people asking that friend those things. So if you can do as much reading as possible, and you go a step forward, you lead them to stuff that they should be aware of. You tell them that अरे ये नई queer film निकली है, you have to absolutely see it. This is a book that you have to absolutely read. So you support them in the journey of self growth. And like I said, when you are inclusive in life in general, towards people in life in general, you will observe a lot of things and things will start changing, for you. So yeah, that's what I'll say. I'm curious to see what Vishal says.
I don't know. I personally believe that allyship begins with unlearning, remove any preconceived notions you have, any misconceptions you have, and you can do that by educating yourself. Today, knowledge is available at the tip of your finger. If you want to learn about a particular community, you have like infinite resources, from websites to you know Instagram pages to books. So educate yourself and be inclusive. Also before being inclusive, be open about being an ally. There's a term called coming out, which queer people use when they tell about their own sexuality or gender. I believe coming out is important for allies also to come out as an ally. Unless you tell that you're an ally, people around you are not going to know that you support the community. And once you come out as an ally, it gives people around you a safe space to come out and share about their own identities with you. Be inclusive, invite friends over and be deliberate and conscious in it. Include queer people in your social circles, in your family gatherings. Take your queer friend to your home and probably introduce them to your parents and everything. Stand up if you see that a queer person is being discriminated or in any way being bullied or tortured. Stand up with that person, help report these incidences to the authorities. If something like this is happening in college, then encourage that queer person to report these incidences. Go with them to complain. If it's happening at any other walks of life, if things are to be reported with the police, go with them for that. And also believe that every person deserves a life of dignity and self-respect and love, and we need to give that to each other.
I completely agree with all of you. So I just have one last question for the panel. Is that as we're also started an initiative of Transcend in June, I want your guys' advice or any advice to the students or everyone around the world. What do they do post June? What are the things we should do to keep people included? Because everyone talks about it in June, everyone appreciates the Pride Month, but it's not just 1 month of queer community. It's every day and it's every year. So what do you need to do post June?
I think we all need to be better humans all throughout the year, and we need to be better people or allies, not just to the queer community, but generally be nice to everybody. That's what I feel like.
Well said, Vishal. No, but also, yeah, like all these things that we were talking about, the media and the resources. I think watch all of these things, and obhi ye sab jo bola, like like doing all of these things and taking your friend to shopping and going and taking your mother to watch some movie, or like, yeah, I guess just create more conversation within the communities. I think that's something that should definitely keep on happening here and there, because yeah, like there's so much out there that is going to push you to kind of talk about all of this and use media, use history, use books and everything that we have. Use your own resources, courses. I mean, management, right? Like, I mean, I don't know much about what all NMIMs offers, but like currently, I'm thinking a lot about management in the film industry and the kind of things that are missing here. The kind of things that so there's just like so much from whatever you're studying. Like from there, how does this build your own capacity of thinking of inclusivity or diversity or empathy in whatever field you all are doing. So just like what Vishal said, like continuing the awareness and continuing the craft of being a good human.
मुझे दोनों के साथ पूरी सहमति है, और उसके साथ मुझे जोड़ना है कि सी ऑफ कोर्स इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट टू डू इवेंट्स इन प्राइड मंथ. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's the most visible time, so a lot of younger people who don't know about queerness get to know in that month, so it's important to do. But then it should be important that you do it all year around, and a good marker would be to do an event around queer issues at least once a quarter, I would say. And there are many days across the year actually where there are important visibility days, and they are very important ones like the Transgender Day of Visibility, or the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. And they are very theme based, and there's a reason that that theme has been chosen, because that is a particular issue that affects the community. So recognize that there are other marker days which are also very important for the community. Pride is a lot about celebration, but then there are also very serious issues that we are talking about, whether it's the World AIDS Day or things like that. Try to combine it also with intersectional issues. आप इवेंट्स कर ही रहे होगे, बट आप देखो कि अगर आप मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया पे एक पैनल रख रहे हो, आर यू गेटिंग अ क्लियर रिप्रेजेंटेशन? So how are you being inclusive in the conversation throughout the year? Because as a student, I'm guessing you people will be organizing. Other than that, like Vishal and Lauren have said, वो एक रोज की बात है. आप जब रोज वैसे देखना चालू करोगे, then you will be like, अरे ये पैनल में ये नहीं था, या ये पैनल में वो नहीं था, this panel lacked that, like that. Right now, if you don't start working on it, your unconscious bias will get in the way of you later being a better manager, a better leader. It really make you blind to a lot of the discrimination around you. So the earlier you start working on this, the better. It's my advice to you.
And yeah, Sonal was saying that these days are across the year, actually spread out across the year very evenly, and that's quite cool. And watch Disclosure, do film screenings. So Disclosure is this documentary on Netflix, very very informative. A lot of things are out there right now. There's a beautiful documentary, half an hour, on the works of Vaishnavi Ved, the LGBTQ, the lesbian activist in the US, who's Alok Ved Menon's Alok Ved's
Aunt.
aunt, and beautiful documentary on her work. So do these film screenings and stuff, and have conversations, like bring people on board, bring me, whatever, and have conversations with each other about like, what do you all think? What about that? Blah blah blah. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, and use your platform and privilege to give opportunity to queer people. Don't just invite us to speak on queer rights. We can speak on other things also. Like, for example, I met one of the founders of Jaipur Literature Festival on a flight at Bhopal Literature Festival, where I was invited to speak as on a LGBT poetry panel, poetry session or something like that. And she invited me to speak at Jaipur Literature Festival, where I thought I was being invited to speak as a queer person, but the panel was about how to encourage people to read, because she knew I'm a bookseller. So probably she saw me a year back. She kept it in her mind that he's a bookseller. So don't necessarily have to invite queer people, because a queer person might also be a bookseller. A queer person might also be a actor, director. So when you host such panels, or there are some events like that, there are experts from the queer community that you could invite on a broader panel if there's an opportunity.
Yeah, I like that message a lot, inviting queer people to talk about not just
Not
queer rights, but yes, and talking about everything in general, actors, theater, booksellers, and everything. I like that message a lot. I think that wraps up all of our questions, all of the questions I had. I think we've had a very fruitful session, and I thank each one of you for taking out the time to join us for this event.